how many people in the Canadian population earn up to $100,000 a year? Average people will earn, say, 50,000, 40 something $1,000 in a year, right?
Yeah.
And you have to factor in taxes.
Yeah.
If you buy a house, right, you have to factor in mortgages, all those things. Right? Most people have noticed they don't keep one job, right?
Yeah.
It's always good to have an extra source of income. Things keep going up. The interest rates are increasing. Bank of Canada is increasing interest rates. And with interest rates increasing, you have a lot of things going up. Mortgages are going up. The prices, real estate is going up. It's so expensive to buy a house now. Rent is going up. Groceries are going up. So like it's affecting everybody. It's funny because the healthcare system is
I heard there's shortage of doctors there.
there's shortage of doctors, right? There's shortage of doctors. You have long wait times in the emergency room. People are waiting hours, more than 12 hours to see a doctor, you understand?
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we have Ada in our midst again. This is the third or fourth time on this channel, I think. Yeah, Ada, you're welcome. Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Welcome to our channels. Welcome to Dr. Ayo's channel, and welcome to my own channel as well.
Yeah.
And yes, I make YouTube videos about studying in Canada, lifestyle, immigration, some blogs, and all that. So it's nice to catch up again and do this collab again.
Guys, the name of our channel again is Ada Canada. Before you press ADA, you will see it on YouTube. Right? She's famous now. Yeah, so today we are going to be talking about like a trending topic, an important topic. Why are people leaving Canada? And there is no better person to bring on to discuss about this. She's a resident. She's actually a citizen of Canada. She's better pleased to tell us what's actually going on in Canada these days. Ada, why are people leaving Canada? Is it because the place is boring? Is it because of weather or what? Why? What do you think?
So to start off with, Canada is not boring.
Okay.
Canada is not boring. It's not a boring place. However, it is a place that I mean, if people find it boring, I can understand if people find it boring because maybe they don't have like friends that they can explore different places with.
Yeah.
So I can understand, especially if you're that kind of person who likes to like go to different places with people. If you don't have anybody to go to anywhere with, you might find it boring. But to me, Canada is not boring. It's a very beautiful country. I've said this before and I keep saying it.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, I have like some reasons on my list why I think people leave Canada. And I feel like these are quite understandable because perspectives change, people's wants and needs change, and people have different things that they're going for or pursuing in life. And if whatever it is that they want to achieve or the next thing they want to do doesn't really involve them being in Canada, or is not going to be profitable for them to be in Canada to achieve those goals or those dreams, then, they will have to move as long as, wherever they're moving to is going to be of more benefit to them than staying in Canada. So one of the first reasons that I have on my list here about why people leave Canada is because just generally, I wouldn't even say this about Canada. I would say both Canada and the US, but let's say more so Canada. It's a bit challenging to build and maintain wealth. So I'm not talking about riches, I'm talking about wealth. And the reason I say this is just because of the tax system, right? You pay tax for everything. You pay tax for goods and services. You pay tax on your salary. So when you get your gross income, the government is going to take out a portion, and whatever is left, that is your net income. And you are taxed at every stage, no matter how much you earn. The rate at which you are taxed is different for everybody. But the general kind of idea behind this whole taxing thing is that the more money you earn, the more tax that you have to pay. And tax is something you cannot evade. You can't, I mean, if you evade it, it's a criminal offense, right? That can land you in jail. So I feel like the taxes are just crazy sometimes, especially if you live in any one of those provinces that have like higher GST, which is like the general services tax or goods and services tax,
Yeah.
and then you have PSC, provincial something. I've forgotten what the S is about, right? We have all those GST, PST, HST kind of tax, right? It's different. For example, in a place like British Columbia, I think British Columbia is one of the most expensive provinces to live in, and the tax is about 12%, right? Because the GST is 5%, the HST or the PST is 7%, so that's 12% in total. A place like Ontario, I think it's around 12%, or is it 13%? A place like Alberta, where we are even somehow better because we only have GST, which is the goods and services tax, so that's 5%. So if you're buying something, right, if you have this particular item that you're buying, right, what you pay, it is different by the time you add the tax,
Yeah.
right? And then in your pay, like your salary, right? At every stage, for example, if you earn somewhere between, I don't know, maybe $10,000 to $20,000 in a year, right? eh, the amount of tax that you will pay is not the same with someone who earns $50,000 a year.
Okay.
That too, it's not the same with someone who earns $100,000 a year. For example, if you get, let's say you get $5,000 in a month, you have a job that is paying $5,000 in a month,
Yeah.
and that $5,000 is your gross income. That's like all the money you've made for the entire month. Let's say it's over $5,000.
Mhm.
And by the time the government takes their taxes,
Yeah.
by the time all these deductions come in, you might end up with having just $3,000,
Wow.
right? Or 3,000 and something. Depends, right? And out of that 3,000, you have to pay rent, you have to, pay for utilities,
Yeah.
you have to pay groceries, you have to pay this bill, you have to pay that bill, and all those things. So
Yeah.
by the time you remove all this money that you have to pay
I'm left with nothing. Yeah.
a month, how much is left for you to save? So that's why, like, it's crazy sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Most people, like, for you to be like, let's say, rich, 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 and by rich, like get to that point, let's say maybe you're earning
Yeah.
over $1,000, over $200,000. It's going to take a while. It's not something that just happens overnight, except maybe if you're somehow favored and you just suddenly land in this position that just sets you up, that pays that high, right? But, how many people in the Canadian population earn up to $100,000 a year? It's not much now, right? On average, people will earn a median average of, let's say, 50,000, 40 something thousand, $60,000 in a year, $70,000 in a year, depending on what area, what sector you're in, right?
Yeah.
And you have to factor in taxes. If you are married and you have kids, right, you have to factor in your kids. If you buy a house, right, you have to factor in mortgages, all those things, property taxes. So what is left to save, right? And that's why most people that I've noticed, well, including myself, especially if you are international, right? Most people have noticed they don't keep one job, right? It's always good to have an extra source of income to supplement. These days, you hardly see a single income household, except maybe that household is maybe a single parent, right? But if it's like a couple that are married, right? Most of them, like in both of them, are working to contribute, right? Because it's going to be stressful if it's just one person who is covering everything. Like you will have to be super super rich then. So I think that's one reason, just the taxes, and because of this, you have people moving to places where they don't really collect tax. For example, in the Middle East, right? In the Middle East is where you can work, and if they are paying you $10,000 in a month, that's exactly what you're collecting.
That's
So
what you take home. Yeah.
yeah, they don't really have the tax.
Yeah. I understand what you meant by there's a kind of, it's so difficult for you to have a wealth, because there's a kind of cap on it. And I'm very sure private business owners also will struggle with tax. And that's the reason why they are moving elsewhere, like to the Middle East, for example, like you said. Yeah.
It just takes a longer time. Like it's not like you can't just move from your home country and just expect to just make it overnight. It's going to take a long time of you being patient before you get to that level. And even at that, right, you have to make sure that you're positioning yourself strategically. For example, okay, you look for those jobs or you try to be in those careers where they earn really high pay, and also there is stability in the sense that within the next 5, 10 years, you're still going to have a job. These things, it just takes time, for you to get there, there, that very high level.
Yeah.
So most people, if they're not patient, they'll just kind of like move out to a place where they don't have to pay tax or deal with all those taxes. So
Yeah.
that's one reason why people leave.
Yeah.
And then another reason why people leave is the cost of living.
Okay.
I don't know how it is over there in the US, but I know here in Canada things are just, I'm like, there's a lot going on. I'm just looking at it with like side eye.
You say it's the
The
same.
inflation is crazy, guys. The inflation is crazy. I remember when I'm talking to some of my friends or my family members back home and they're complaining things are so bad in Nigeria, things are so bad. Yes, things are so bad. But like when I try to tell them that it doesn't really feel any better sometimes because things keep going up. The interest rates are increasing. Bank of Canada is increasing interest rates. And with interest rates increasing, you have a lot of things going up. Mortgages are going up. The prices, real estate is going up. It's so expensive to buy a house now. Rent is going up. Groceries are going up. So like it's affecting everybody. It's affecting everybody. Except maybe if you're such a very rich person that you don't really have to worry about anything, or if you don't have responsibilities. But if you have responsibilities as an adult, you're working, you're earning money, right? You will feel it. Insurance is also expensive. Like everything just keeps going like higher and higher and higher. And I'm feeling it myself. I remember I moved last year and I moved the year before, right? So I moved I moved locations, accommodation in 2021 and also last year in 2022. And there was a very big difference in the cost of rent. There was a very, very big difference, right? In jump. And I'm like, what's happening? What's happening?
Yeah. Do you think not finding a desired job contributes to the problem? For example, there are professionals that move to Canada because online they said, "Oh, professionals gonna come to Canada, this and that." But when they arrive Canada, it's a different story. So maybe there's this unrealistic expectation, right?
Yes, and honestly, this thing you're saying, the first thing that comes to my mind is doctors. Doctors are affected the
Absolutely.
most. Internationally educated doctors, nurses, not so much because I mean, with nursing, right? All you have to do come in, write like satisfy the requirements. If they approve you, write licensing exam, and then you start earning as an RN, right? Which might be better than what you were earning back home, especially if you're from a third world country. But doctors, it's harder, especially in Canada. In the US, it's slightly better because you have a lot of medical schools.
Much, much better.
Yeah, you have much more variety, medical schools. People can go outside, study, write exam. It's better in Canada. First of all, we don't have much medical schools here compared to the US. Second of all, the process is just so difficult. It's just so difficult that you cannot even, when you come in, for example, what I've heard a lot of doctors complain about is, when they come in as maybe permanent residents, or maybe when they come in, say, for example, to study an MPH degree and then use that to like try and write those licensing exams, right? It's very difficult. And then again, if you now belong to a minority, it's even harder because you have to work twice as hard as somebody who is, not minority, or someone who is of a different, of like Caucasian descent, if I'm to say. So you spend thousands of dollars writing exams that you have to pass. And then when it comes to matching, you don't even get where you even desire.
Yeah.
You don't get where you doing this. That's if you even match.
In the US, for example, the last statistic says 60% of foreign trained medical doctors match into residency.
It's a lot better.
That's a record high in the US. But in Canada, I'm very sure it's less than 10%. Less than 10%.
Yes, they make it so tough for internationally trained doctors to come in, which is funny because the healthcare system is.
I heard there's a shortage of doctors there.
There's a shortage of doctors. right? There's shortage of doctors. You have long wait times in the emergency room. People are waiting hours, more than 12 hours to see a doctor. You understand? The shortage of family doctors. People can't even register to have a family doctor. You have to wait or be on the list or some of those other things, right? To be honest, I wish I could understand why they can't like bend some rules or like make it easier for
It's not
doctors
a
to.
problem. It's intentionally done because I was listening to a podcast. Some Canadian physicians are talking about it, and they can't actually lay their hands on it. So they actually said maybe because of money, the government are trying to, keep the money within. If you come as a foreign doctor, there's no way you can contribute to the economy by you are not returning any loan, you are not repaying any loan. So they
Oh,
need someone to study in their country,
I'm
obtain
paying.
a lot of money, and keep returning the loan back to the system. So that's one of the reasons.
Yeah. University of Toronto. Um, there was there was this girl, right? She's actually Nigerian, but she left. She and her family they moved to Canada. I think when she was much younger, I think in early teenage years or so, and she actually studied at University of Toronto in medicine. She
Mm,
ended up being the best graduating student, like the class valedictorian
mm,
in 2020. This story actually was on LinkedIn. So in 2020, she was class valedictorian. She happened to be the only black person in her entire class. But even at that, right, I read her story. She did an interview and she was talking about the level of racism she encountered, both from her classmates, from instructors, and then from patients when they are doing all these clerkships or internships, right? About
yeah,
how people will say the moment they see her, they don't want her as a doctor. She was
mm,
the only black student. And even at that, being the class valedictorian, she received a lot of death threats from her classmates
wow,
because, okay, why would they allow somebody who's black to be class valedictorian? What about them? Right? She's
wow.
just smart. She's just smart.
Okay.
And then the following year, which was 2021, like the next set of medical students that they admitted, right, in their bid to include all this diversity stuff, like they want to be inclusive, they want to
Yeah,
show that diversity, they admitted about, I think it was 250 students into med school that
okay.
year. So this cohort now is going to graduate, I think, in 2024 or
Okay.
there, yeah, 2024 or so, or 2025.
Mm,
And in that cohort, right, because she was the only black student. So after this whole George Floyd issue,
mhm.
when they admitted those 250 students, just guess the percentage of people who were black. We have
Um,
not even come to other ethnic minorities,
mm,
right? It was just 20%.
imagine.
It was just 20 out of 250, meaning there were less than, I think there were less than 20 black people,
Yeah.
right? And that 250, it's not everybody that is going to graduate as it does. Some people might drop out or fall
Sure.
out at the end of the day. So it's very tight and it's very tough.
Mhm.
Very, very tough. I know in my channel, I made a video about, going to med school in Canada. And I specifically told people because I searched virtually all the medical schools in Canada. And I told people that if you're not a citizen or a permanent resident, you cannot go to med school in Canada because they will not take you. So if you're coming into Canada thinking you want to study medicine immediately, you have to find something else to do. And then when you get your permanent residency, you can then pursue med school, right? There's so many things involved. There are so
And
many
it's been
things
going
involved.
for years and years. I mean, decades. It's not something of maybe from the 2000. No, it's been like that for since the
It's been like that for a long time. It's been like that for a long time. Like honestly speaking, I feel like, and this is just my own personal opinion, right? If I wasn't already here in Canada and I wanted to study medicine, I don't think I would come to Canada and study medicine. I think I'd rather go to the US if I
Yeah.
can be accepted in the US and study medicine there because it's just easier,
Yeah, but
especially
in your
as
own case,
a
it's
person of color
different
or as a
now.
minority.
Yeah,
It's
you're a
just
citizen now.
it's
I think it's different now. I mean, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get into medical school now, as compared to if you are just a foreigner or someone who is
yes,
from a permanent resident. So it's a little
yes,
bit different now.
yes, yes, yes. Yes, I mean, if even as a Canadian, if I moved to the US to go study medicine, I will be treated as an international student. So
Yeah,
I will still be
we
paying
need to keep it.
international
But
school.
something, yeah, the good thing about US, I'm not going to lie, in terms of medicine, they don't really look at the color of your skin. They don't do
So
that.
much better than Canada.
Yeah, I'm not,
Canada is still learning. They have a long way to go.
I'm not a big fan of US system, but I would tell you that in terms of medicine, they don't really look at the color of your skin. To match you into residency, they don't. It's about competency.
And then
So
you have all these people, like for example, yeah, I've talked to quite a number of men who are doctors and like coming into Canada, how can they practice all those kind of things, right? These are men who are like in their 30s, getting close to their 40s. Some of them have families, right?
yeah,
The reason why some of them leave or some of them just kind of drop at the end, right? They just need a career. They just
yeah.
need something that puts food on the
And
table.
the longer it drags on, you tend to have a choice to make. So either you pick family or over, I mean, because you are getting to your 30s now, you have to make a decision. Yeah, so talking about health, let's move to healthcare now. You were saying something about the healthcare system in Canada. I also read online that it's very, very hard to see specialists. You have to be on this very long queue, right?
In terms of healthcare, so the healthcare system in Canada, it's free.
Mm,
Technically, it's
mm,
free, but the reason why I say technically it's free is
yeah,
that if you look deeper, it's not necessarily free. The
mm,
taxes that we're paying,
yeah,
right? What is making the healthcare free?
mm,
And it's only certain things, right? There are some things that are not free. For
mm,
example, when it comes to vision or like vision or dental, some of like cosmetic
okay,
things, those
yeah,
ones,
mm,
the government will not cover it, right?
okay.
Sometimes some insurance companies or the insurance you get from work might not really cover it.
Mm.
But the healthcare system is free
So
and
it's free at
largely
primary level, like primary health care, like
yes,
basic.
primary healthcare. For example, I can walk into a doctor's office and I will not pay for consultation. If
Yeah,
they send me to go do lab work, like draw blood collection, I will not pay. If they are asking me to go and do MRI or a scan or something, I will not pay.
yeah,
Sometimes some specialists, if they refer me to a specialist, I will not pay. But if
mm,
it's something that is cosmetic, for example, I normally do laser surgery
okay,
at a dermatology clinic. So
mm,
that's cosmetic, and my insurance cannot cover that. And then
mm,
also, the government doesn't cover that because it's my choice to do it.
yeah,
So
definitely.
it's not technically not everything. And even though I'm a citizen, right, I still pay for that aspect of healthcare. But for like the general one, if God forbid something were to happen and I landed in the hospital, I will not pay.
Okay, okay,
But people who are foreign, for example, if you don't have permanent residency,
mm,
if you don't have a status here in
yeah,
Canada, let's say
okay,
you're temporary, right?
yeah,
You have to pay, right?
okay. Because
If I were to get pregnant and give birth, I will not pay for giving
okay,
birth.
mm,
I will not pay for giving birth. If I
yeah,
wanted to have a tummy tuck after giving birth, I
yeah,
think that's also free as well. I will not pay.
oh,
So, like at that primary healthcare level,
mm,
it's largely free
okay,
and largely publicly funded. We don't
mm,
really have much privately funded. Like we don't have much of the private sector here,
yeah,
except for I don't know something like a dermatology clinic will be private, something that is cosmetic, where they do all this plastic surgery, Botox, or
yeah,
maybe something like laser treatment for the eyes or something like that.
mm,
That's something that is private, but
yeah,
they pay more.
mhm,
But in the general sense, right, we
yeah,
don't really have much of that private coverage.
okay,
And there's also there are so many facets to the healthcare system. So
mm,
there is the fact that okay, it's largely publicly funded, number one. Number
mhm,
two, we don't have enough staff,
mm,
right? We don't have like there's a shortage of nurses, there's a shortage of doctors.
mhm.
We don't have so much doctors. So the fact that we don't have much staff, that's also adding to the longer wait
It's
times.
self-inflicted as well. Mm,
Yes, that's leading to the longer wait times and putting a strain on the healthcare
yeah,
system. COVID-19 was something that happened and also created a strain on the
yeah,
healthcare
yeah,
system. Like now we're trying to move back to normal,
mm,
right? So this is one of the reasons why I think people end up just moving out
mm,
of Canada entirely because someone will come and they want to see a doctor and they have to wait 12, 15, 18 hours before they get to see a doctor in the emergency room.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I think we've actually covered a lot. And of course,
Oh, weather.
huh?
We forgot the weather.
Yeah. So talking about the weather, I think people should be aware about that. It comes with psychological impact as well. So let me let you talk about it.
No, though I think the weather is kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah.
If you are coming from a place that is close to the tropics, for example, Africa that is closer to the equator, if you're used to being in a hot environment and you come here and the weather is like minus 40, like a lot of people can't stand minus 40 degrees, minus 30 degrees. It's crazy when it's cold. So in that case, there are people who just leave when it's winter, they just leave and go somewhere else and stay there. And when it's summer, they come back
Come back.
to work.
Mm.
So some people do that. So especially if people like those people who can't stand the weather or who
Yeah.
can't stand being in a very cold environment, who can't stand winter. I personally don't like winter, but
Okay.
there's also that, right? The weather is a very strong factor.
Yeah. Yeah. So and what about some people that are kind of homesick? They come
Yes.
over and they can't just adjust. They can't adapt to the new environment, so they tend to return back.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
There's also that being homesick. Most people I know who are homesick, just it's a thing of just maybe booking a trip and going back home and then coming back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are people who stay maybe 5 years, 10 years, and they're just like, I'm done. I want to go. And they start selling all their properties to go back home. So there's also that aspect too. Maybe they are just tired of Canada and just want to go somewhere else.
Have you seen Nigerian who is homesick? Have you seen any Nigerian? I'll tell you, I'm homesick.
There are a lot of people that will say they are homesick, but they won't do anything because I mean they are here to make money. So you can't go back when you don't even have anything.
You know
You
how much
haven't
is
anything.
invested. You,
You don't have anything to your name still, right?
exactly.
So it's just like I feel like one way to just cure that homesickness is if you have the money, just book a trip to go home and then come back. But not everybody. I understand not everybody can do that, depending on what level they are at.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. 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 And we're making fun about boredom. And that was the first thing you said, that Canada is not boring. But I've heard from people saying Canada is boring. All they do is work and come back home. Even when there's nothing to do, you have to go back to work. There's nothing interesting to. There's no place to go to. Is that true?
I think that will fall under work-life balance.
Mm.
Work-life balance. And the way this abroad life is that, well, for those of us who are like hardworking, we know where we're coming from, right? But the work-life balance here is just like you have to be very conscious of yourself. How do you create time for yourself? Right. I always talk about creating time for yourself to rest, but like it's very easy to get like swept up or kind of swallowed into the system of, oh, I have to work. I have to take that extra shift. I have to work. I want to work overtime. I want to see. There's nothing wrong with if you have the capacity, do it. But one thing I've realized is because I work overtime too sometimes, but I try and consciously regulate it. But I feel like, and that's why it's very easy to get bored, right?
Okay.
Because if you're always working, or if your friends around you are always working, if you're that type of person who likes to have company when you go out, because one thing I would say, Canada is not. I don't find Canada boring. I
Okay.
just think maybe it's just maybe individual preferences or
Okay.
like I always encourage people to just go out there and do something or see something. If there's a festival that's happening, go out there and go see it. If you
Yeah.
can travel within Canada. Canada is a very beautiful place.
Okay.
That's
Thank
what.
you very much, Ada. And guys, thank you so much for watching, and click the like button and also subscribe if this is your first time on our channels. And we'll see you guys again next time. Thank you. Peace.
You.